Hey, welcome back. So when I took the clutch apart on this thing, it's got a slipper clutch in it. So that's another kind of strange little feature about this. And it's got air forks too. Air fork, slipper clutch. There's all kinds of weird features on this thing for, 84. This is quite mind-blowing back in the day, you'd have to remember, but by today's standards, maybe not so much. Took the clutch apart and somebody had been in there and it's had some debris go through it, and so there's scratch marks, and I don't know exact problem with used bikes. It's had 40 years of owner history for people to ham fist things. So I'm gonna get into that. I've gotten the clutch, I put it back together, I made sure everything was in the right spot, put it all back together. And what was happening is they put, I think, .5 clutch fluid there. It's swollen everything. It was jamming up the slave cylinder so that it couldn't retract. It was holding the clutch open, which was why the clutch was slipping. So, and it just came out of a shop somewhere. So I think they put the wrong fluid in it, and it was all full of little bits in the master cylinder here. I robbed one off of another bike, an old VT 1100, I think. But you see big chunks missing out of this thing. It was just kind of falling apart. So that's kind of weird. And I think they done it with front brakes too, because the front brakes are seizing up on this thing now. And so I'm gonna have to rip this master cylinder apart, the calipers, flush all the lines, the whole 9 yards, and see maybe we can work it out. You'll notice there's a date on these brake lines. This is the 12th month of 83. These lines are supposed to be replaced every 4 years by the workshop manual. So there's that. So 40-year-old brake lines. So we'll see how it goes, I guess. Gonna take it all apart and see what kind of damage is inside. This is all full of gunk and rust and gelatinous goop. I don't know if they put different fluid in this, but they definitely done with the clutch, because I took the clutch apart and it's got a really weird clutch. It's actually got a slipper clutch in it. Amazing for back in 84. And now slipper clutches are a thing that you just get kind of standard on bikes, so they don't lock up the rear wheel. Not all bikes, but big bikes like ZX14s and ZX10s and that sort of thing. The relief port is blocked up. Crack open the bleeder down on the brakes, and it'll release a little pressure, and then your brakes aren't locked up until you ride it a bit further, and then your brakes will lock up again, because the relief port isn't relieving the pressure. That's why they call it relief port in the master cylinder. And so there's so much crud in the master cylinder that you need to clean it all out, and so it works properly and it stops locking up brakes. So if you got brakes that are locking up, they do that because the seals swell and you get corrosion in around the pistons and they can't go back and forth freely. But they also do that because the relief port blocks up in the master cylinder. So that's why the whole thing has to come apart. You can't just do the master cylinder or just do a caliper or something like that and hope for the best. You got to do both calipers, clean out the lines, and then the master cylinder as well. And the relief port, like this is for the clutch, but they're both the same, is this little port right under here. That's the relief port. And that's like a pinhole and gets plugged up. This is where it draws fluid into. There's a plunger underneath here, and the relief port gets plugged up with rust and detritus and that sort of thing. So that's the deal with that. So this is a plunger that goes in to, this is what you push on with your lever. It actually pushes this plunger in. It's got a rubber seal, and it's got another rubber seal right here. It's got a spring that returns the lever after you're done pressing the lever with your hand. And so this is a slave cylinder. Line comes down in here and it pushes this piston. And so it's screwed up this seal, and these are all swollen to hell. And the whole thing is just kind of garbage. I mean, the body's still okay, but the rest of it, pretty cool bike. It's comfortable to ride. If you're thinking about buying one of these, even by today's standards, they're quite good. Once you get them sorted out, they probably need some lav fork seals and oils and fluids and this sort of thing. quite a motorcycle, really. It does nothing particularly impressive except be a good motorcycle. It's really nice to drive. It's got a nice cushy suspension. This thing is about, what, 40 odd years old. Throw a leg over this thing and it's really quite incredible the level of refinement this thing exhibits when it's going down the road. It's got a 6-speed transmission in it. It's got hydraulically adjusted tappets for the valve, so you never have to do a valve adjustment. Automatically adjusted via the hydraulics with the oil pressure in the engine. And so the reset to zero clearance every time you start the engine. Really quite cool. But if you take a look at the engine, and you can see it's very narrow. If you look at the width of the forks, for example, to give you an idea, the motor, a 4-cylinder 750, isn't much wider than the spacing between the forks there. So it's quite a narrow engine. All kinds of things, like the alternators piggyback behind the engine, for example, so that makes it shorter. And then if you can make the motor shorter, then you can make the swing arm longer, you can make the shaft drive longer, and then you can eliminate a lot of that shaft drive jacking that the earlier shaft drive Japanese motorcycles were made famous for, by virtue of either spitting you off or causing horrific accidents. Little interesting features on the Nighthawk 750. For instance, this alternator has a fan behind it. So there's a fan that cools off the alternator in behind the cylinders. They got rid of it from the side, and then they were able to narrow the motor quite a bit. The engine's really small. It's only about this big. I don't know how big that is, but I mean, it's really quite narrow, and then it's really quite short front to back, so that they could put the shaft drive right here and run it all the way back to the rear wheel. So it's quite a long shaft drive. I don't know if you can appreciate how long that is. It's got a center stand as well, which a lot of bikes did back in the day. And that was an option on a lot of bikes. The frame is actually part of the oil cooler, and then it feeds back into the engine. Little details like that, really interesting. And you see the oil cooler, the frame is part of the oil cooler flow, and so oil actually flows through the frame on both sides and comes out somewhere down there on the bottom. Got an anti-dive front end on it called the track system. I'm not sure what that stands for anymore, but basically when it went down, the brake caliper, they had a special bracket on it. You find it on old Goldwings, Magnus, and this sort of thing. And it would shut off the valving for the fork so that it didn't dive as well. It was kind of gimmicky, to be honest. It didn't work as well as people had hoped it would, and they quietly dropped it after some time. You don't see it on motorcycles anymore. The styling's really cool on this thing. I hate to use the word, but timeless comes to mind, and it really is. You can drive this thing in the year 2025 and it looks quite sharp, doesn't it? It's quite a decent bike. And they carried this engine up until about 2007 in different iterations. They had the CB750F, I think it was called, and it had modern running gear and thicker wheels and this sort of thing. Really quite a nice bike. This motor put in all kinds of different variations on a theme, but the motor, it's called the Honda Motor Company, so they make generally motors rather than just solely motorcycles. Really put some effort into this engine. It never set any quarter-mile times. It never set any land speed records, but it was just a great all-around motorcycle. They had later models in 91, 2, 3. They had the Nighthawk CB750, and I think it was actually spelled 750, like SEVAN 50. And they dropped the shaft drive after, I think it was when they brought it out the second time, they dropped the shaft drive. Got nice thick alloy rims on it, so you're not likely to bend those up anytime soon. On like more modern motorcycles where they're thinner gauge. The pipes on these, interestingly enough, a lot of people don't know this, they're double-walled pipes, and they have this weird black, not really a chrome, but a coating on them that was kind of popular in the early 80s. And you see it on a lot of bikes, like the Midnight Specials, Yamahas. He had an XS 1100 Midnight Special, a Virago Midnight Special 920 750. And this thing has that odd black coating on the exhaust pipes. And if you cut the exhaust pipes in half, they're actually not a single walled pipe, they're a double walled pipe. And the reason they do that is that they can run it leaner and then it doesn't blue the pipe, which happens on chrome pipes, which most of the pipes back in the day were chrome. However, these are not. They have a weird coating, but they are still a double walled pipe to alleviate heat dispersion around the headers. So kind of interesting. Just there's all these little features around these bikes that are interesting, that are not particularly, don't jump out at you. This got air forks on it, so you can adjust the air pressure on it. It's got little Schrader valves on the top, and you can adjust it up to 6 psi, I believe. And 6 is the maximum you go, because any more than that, you're stressing out the fork seals and this sort of thing.